and welcome to Crying in the Book Club. Happy Pride Month! This is the hit new podcast where three emotional friends talk about comic books that make them emotional. And few comic books make me as emotional as today's topic of discussion. But before I get ahead of myself, I am your host, Emily, and I'm here with John Luke. Hi, John Luke.
Hello, Emily. How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good. And I'm also here with Alex. Hi, Alex.
So I was emotional at the beginning when there was but one Joker, but then when they added the other two to bring it to three Jokers, I was like, wow, that's a lot of Jokers. So
Oh, I see. You also
it
saw the
got to
People's
me.
Joker.
Oh yeah. Which actually is coming to DVD apparently.
Yeah,
So
and VHS. Sure.
why not? Why not? Why not?
We are here to talk about a manga called Gunjo by Ching Nakamura. It was serialized in Kodansha's Monthly Morning 2 from June 2007 to June 2009. It was canceled in 2009, but the manga continued its publication in Shogakukon's Monthly Ikki from February 2010 to January 2012. Nakamura first planned to resume the manga as a doujinshi. I feel like I've probably brought up doujinshi on here before, but just in case, that's the Japanese term for self-published print works such as magazines, manga, novels. There's like an association in like English language anime and manga fandom with like doujinshi as like fan works, but it just means any self-published work. But after talking with the monthly Ikki staff, that she was able to get it picked up and it finished out its run in print, like in a magazine. Uh, Shogakukan collected the chapters for Gunjo in 3 tankobon volumes, which is the version that we read today. A live-action film adaptation produced by Netflix titled Ride or Die premiered in April of 2021, and it is
That's a
not
really funny title.
very
That's
good.
really wow.
I think the Japanese title is just like her, but like the Japanese like female pronoun for her. I don't know where. I mean, I know like in concept where the name Ride or Die comes from, I guess, but I think that is a very funny name. It is actually the movie version of this is the whole reason that I know about this comic at all, because the movie they released a trailer in 2021, and I saw it and I was like, oh, this is based on a comic, and I read the comic, and I went a little insane the first time I read this manga. I read it the entire thing over the course of 24 hours because I just like couldn't put it down. I just kept clicking next chapter on my phone, and it is probably one of my most favorite series I have ever read. I feel very strongly about this, and so I've been very interested in what the reactions from the two of you were going to be. So I can't wait to get into that. The story centers around the two women. We will be calling them Reizu and Megane. They do have real names, but those are not used at any point during the actual series. You only see them like at the very end on like a little character bio page. But Reizu, real name Chiyomi Otaka, is a lesbian, and Megane Soko is real name Soko Izaki, is the woman that Reizu has been in love with since they were in high school together. Megane, who in adulthood has been suffering abuse at the hands of her husband, asks Reizu to kill him for her. After the murder, the two women are forced to go on the run and subsequently face their complicated relationship with each other, as well as their respective personal traumas. While on the run, they encounter a colorful cast of characters, including Kyoko Chiba, a ditzy girl with a crush on her coworker; Kita Kei, Reizu's longtime girlfriend; Kita's parents, who she is initially afraid to come out to; Kenji Otaka, Reizu's brother; and Asami Otaka, Kenji's pregnant wife. So, guys, how did you enjoy your foray into the genre colloquially known as toxic yuri. Yuri being
I
the Japanese genre for works centered on lesbian or otherwise romantic relationships between two women.
I'll say right off the bat that Emily, you said this was going to be a short one, and when I started reading it last week, I was just looking at all the
I
volumes and doing the
no,
math, and it
I
was
look.
like, this is
I
not.
no, I okay. I said it was short because I remembered it being 3 volumes. I just forgot that those volumes are as long as they are because it's been. I read this in 2021, so I hadn't even like looked at it in 3 years. So that was my bad. But I'm glad that we
But
had plenty of time to read it.
yeah, I
It
think on the
might
whole,
be the
like,
longest thing we've ever talked about in one episode of the show.
I think so. Yeah,
Maybe if it's second to anything, it's Scott Pilgrim, and that would be the only thing. So, not
I
that
think it's
that's a
Interesting.
longer.
bad thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah. You asked if we liked it, and I overall like I have very different feelings about the different volumes, I'd say, but on the whole, I enjoyed it. I think well, we'll get to it, but I think the first one starts off a little weaker than the other ones, and then the second one I really liked. The third one is like a half I liked it, half I didn't like it. And I think it ends really
Mm-hmm.
strongly, but we can dive into that.
Mm-hmm. John Luke, I remember distinctly the only thing I've heard from you about this is you sent a group message to the group chat that was like, "This book is fucking wild."
Yeah, it is. Not always in a good way.
No, I don't
Uh, I,
disagree.
I don't know. It's kind of weird because I kind of agree with Alex in the sense that I do like Volume 2 quite a bit, and I don't care for Volume 1, and Volume 3 is kind of all over the place. I didn't have like when it first started, I sort of expected to have a strong reaction, emotional reaction, one way or the other, and then I just didn't.
Interesting.
I ended up being sort of indifferent to a lot of it, but yeah, I think on the whole, I enjoyed it. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the text that I liked. There's also a lot of stuff that I don't like, but that's a lot of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I found it like, well, I don't know. We can get into we can get into specifics later. But yeah, like on the whole, I thought it was decent, at least, I guess,
Okay.
if you take the average of everything.
Sure. Sure. How does this manga compare to other manga that we have read, just in general?
I think it's a little like so. I mean, I guess a few things in there. I think it's interesting because it's very like I don't know if meandering is the right word, but there's just things where like I mean repetitions used a lot in this book, obviously, like on purpose and motifs and memories and just the characters playing back something they've heard before in their mind and it all tying in. But I find there like it is pretty slow moving and the way that things are going and stuff like that, which kind of is different than most of the mangas I feel like we've read because they're pretty much like go 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 on to the next thing. I really did like the art in general I liked, but I really enjoyed when they had like real things. Like anytime they had a brand in there or like a car thing, and some of them like it does look like it is just like a picture with like a filter on it. Some of them,
I
and
do
some
think
of them,
that a lot of like real images or like cityscapes and stuff, I do think those are like basically drawn over photographs for a lot of stuff. I'm not 100% on that, but a lot of it is just a little too like it's a little too good.
yeah, yeah, and but it like works. It looks so crisp and stuff, and it's kind of like the characters look a little more like you'd expect in an anime, but when that's like it just adds a nice stylistic touch to it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I do think it looks really good for the most part. Like I think a lot of the establishing shots, especially, are really well drawn. I don't know if they're traced or not, like you said, Emily,
Mhm.
but either way they look really well. They look really good.
Something
It,
something I like about the art style is that it's a little ugly. Like people
yeah, no, I
pe-
agree. Yeah.
it doesn't have it doesn't have like your typical like more moe anime style. Moe means cute, and like it
Hmm.
refers to like sort of a specific aesthetic that you see in a lot of especially like yuri manga in particular. So since this is sort of an ugly messy story, I like that the art style is like a little ugly and messy.
Yeah, it fits. I like that the character, like, especially even the character models, right, are
Hmm.
like, you know, I don't know, there's not a whole lot of like sex appeal in the book, I guess is the way
Yeah,
you can put it.
yeah.
It definitely has a roughness to it that I like for sure.
I feel like you were gonna say something else before I said that.
Oh well, I was gonna talk. I was gonna just answer the question about comparing it to other manga, which
Mhm.
I like. Again, I think I'm probably on kind of on the same page as Alex on this front too, where like it the structure of it is just is really different from other manga we've read, which I think a lot of the manga we've read are things that are have more like one to one with like a lot like mainstream Western comics, and this feels
Mhm.
more. It's not slice of life. Like obviously, it's like extremely, and I know slice of life in manga means something different than it does in a Western context, but it it feels more. It's obviously very heightened, but it feels more like I don't know. I mean, I hate to make these kinds of analogs, but it feels more like an image book than where like Alita and Dungeon Meshi and things like that feel like DC and Marvel. Like the I
Yeah.
guess the manga equivalent of DC and Marvel, and this feels like
No, I think you. I absolutely think you have a point here. I think that a lot of the other stuff that we've read is going for more of a mass market appeal, and this is definitely
yeah,
more of like your like emotional indie comic sort of vibe.
yeah, and even more than that, like Image even isn't the perfect example. Isn't even like a perfect comparison because obviously there's a lot of Image comics, but it's more. It
Mhm.
feels like it's more for adults
Yeah,
than
yeah, yeah.
not that again. Like
I mean,
I'm
this is
not. I
obviously
don't. I'm
much
not.
more for adults, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but even beyond just like the nudity and the violence and the suicide baiting and stuff like that, like
Hmm.
like thematically, it's a much more of an adult book than
Hmm.
even like something like Alita or even the I can't remember the name of the one we did with Chad
The furry manga, or
the furry one,
oh yeah,
yeah,
wise beasts.
yeah, even that which has some more racy elements to it feels like it's still like for teenagers basically,
Hmm.
whereas
Like
this is
teen
very
young adult ish, you know.
yeah. This is very much not YA or for kids, which is a good thing. I mean, uh, the execution in some places is messy, but I do not mind I don't mind reading something that's a little more. I don't want to say elevated. That's not exactly the right word, but something that's more emotionally mature maybe.
Yeah, I mean I'm much more forgiving of a work that is like messy and ambitious rather than messy and like boring. And this feels
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's really got like a lot of like it's really going for something in terms of like themes and whatnot that
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is a little deeper than some of the other manga that we have read. We are back, we are here, and anyway, we were talking about how this is sort of more of a like adult in theme and content than some of the other things that we have read
Yeah,
in the world of manga at
and I think it's
least.
something where like it is pretty long. We've talked about and spread out, and I'm wondering if it was shorter, if it would have if I would enjoy it more. I mean, I did enjoy it on the whole, but I also feel like the meanderiness kind of adds to it, and it kind of there's moments where I was kind of checking out, and in parts of it stuff, but then there's stuff that does bring me back in. So maybe it being tighter would have been better, but it I feel like the messiness of it almost is a little metatextual. I don't know if that's on purpose, but it
No, I think that you're probably onto something there. I have definitely thought that about this book, that like sort of the messy nature of it is all like it's all an expression of like how messy and complicated like these characters' lives are, because like a lot of times na- quote unquote narratives in real life are not very tight and can often cycle back and repeat themselves, and it felt like, even though it is very like, it's got kind of a like, I don't want to say melodrama, but a little bit like, because there is like so much happening and the like emotions are so heightened and like everybody's got like a whole bunch of bullshit going on. It feels very like real and human to me in a way that other series don't necessarily come off that way in like a warts and all sort of way. I don't
Mm.
know if either of you would
It's
really
got
agree, but
yeah, and it's got like I think I agree with
it just
that.
feels very messy and human to me in a way that I really
Yeah, I mean
enjoy.
parts of it, like in the dialogue when they're talking at points, I think when it's at its highest, it reminds me of like Peak Deadly Class. When I mean, for me, Peak Deadly Class was like people with them just hanging out and talking about random stuff and being really passionate about it, and it flew really well. This is, but
Hmm.
it's surrounded by so much other stuff that it's not quite there, but we're quite
Yeah.
similar. But
I, I think the dialogue doesn't necessarily have a fluidity to it that some of that stuff does to me, which I think is fine for the most part. Like I do agree with Emily that I agree with I agree with your analysis at the very least. I don't necessarily think I like it as much as you do. I
And
mean,
that's fine.
it's not that I don't enjoy things that are more reflective of, reality and like what real human relationships are like. I think it's interesting to do that. This book definitely doesn't have like what you would refer to as like satisfying narrative arcs or whatever.
Not necessarily,
It,
no.
it, it it kind of circles around the same sort of I like the kind of like will they won't they kind of idea. Do they hate each other? Do they love each other? Are they saying they hate each other because they don't want to be emotionally vulnerable with each other?
yes,
Or like, are they, you know, is she really beating the shit out of the other girl because she wants to make it look good for the cops, or does she just want to beat the shit out of her? I kind of like that one. I think it's pretty clear she just wants to beat the
Yeah.
shit out of her. That I
Well,
think that's
I'm sorry. Maybe it's just maybe I've just got my Yuri goggles on, but like when she says like I wanted to make it believable for the
uh
cops,
huh
like I kind of buy it. Like I know that they like really
yeah
get into it as things progress over the course of like the I think like this happens just over the course of like a day or two. uh
yeah
but like
yeah
I kind of buy when she says that like she was trying to freak her out because the breakdown that she has about I can't even like she gets so freaked out by her capacity for that violence in that
sure
moment that like she is like I don't understand how anyone could do this for real.
yeah
like
that's fair
I kind of buy like even though later they do kind of come to they come to physical
they sure
blows.
yes
do.
They do like things get more physical and intense later, but this is pretty early in them like being on the run, and uh they have not been annoying the shit out of each other as much, and they're
yeah
not as sleep deprived and like so yeah, that specific instance, I kind of buy when she says like I was just doing that so that you would look freaked out when the cops came, so that they
that's
would
fair.
believe you.
I think you can. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think
I
you can
don't
read
know
it
that
that. I think.
I think you could definitely read it multiple ways, but this is just
Yeah.
me. Like that's my personal read.
I,
I never thought for a second that she was being like genuinely
it's
threatening in that moment.
the optimist in you.
A little bit.
Yeah. The hopeful romantic, but
A little
it's
bit.
yeah like it does kind of lend itself to that on multiple occasions that it's
Hmm.
obviously it is a, to its credit, like it has some tricks to kind of like very clearly indicate that like the things that the characters are saying aren't always what they mean, which I like.
Hmm.
Were
you know it,
were there any inner monologue stuff going on or text? Because for me, that was a
yeah.
little.
So that's one of the things that I like is that there's that there. I mean, I think it can be confusing, and I think I have some critiques of the lettering of this book,
Sure.
but I
Well, and
think
this is we were reading a fan translation,
Yeah, well,
so
okay.
like
Actually, that
it
explains
it
why there are ellipses like
it
6 times a sentence.
this is a fan translation because there isn't like an official
Okay.
digital translation of the manga as far as I was able to track down. So we were
Yeah.
reading this on famed Yuri scanlation website Dynasty Scans.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. There are definitely internal bits of internal monologue, and that's actually one of the things I really like. Is that there are times when, like, mid conversation, you'll have and part of the problem is that it's done in two ways, and I don't think this is a translation thing. I just think this is a lettering thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes the internal monologue is in like a black box, and sometimes the internal monologue is not in a text box.
Yeah,
It's just free floating.
and I imagine
So
that problem is probably present in just the original version with
Yeah.
yeah,
lettering, because that comes down to like the way that the text boxes
yeah.
It
are done
yeah.
and stuff.
And so it's not always clear, like, when you're getting internal monologue versus when you're getting dialogue. But when you can parse it, which I would say is, to be fair, it is most of the time that it's parsable. It's not like unreadable because of
Yeah.
this. You have it inserted in the middle of conversations, which I really like, because, obviously the characters are saying one thing to each other and they're thinking something else in their heads, which you can convey that via you can convey that via the story. Like, obviously you can, like, have scenes a few minutes later where, like, the characters are reflecting on it or whatever, but I like the very, like, in the moment kind of feeling of, you know they're of thinking something and then saying,
Hmm.
like, basically the exact, not always the exact opposite, but something that's not
Yeah.
congruent with
I mean, it's
that.
almost like
Because I think it really,
sorry. You can finish it.
no, I was just gonna say, I think it really like exemplifies the sort of mental state of the
Yeah, and
characters.
sometimes it read to me a little bit like it was like a tick or something, where like it was something where they would almost say out loud kind of thing, and then they were like, oh, but keeping it in, and then by the end they're like saying some of the stuff that they were
Mm-hmm.
thinking out loud. It was just a little bit like I'd say, like, I agree with Jean Luc, where like 90% of the time it was clear, but the 10% where it wasn't was just very much like, wait, is this here? Is that here?
No, I can totally understand that
Yeah, which also, I mean,
for
just kind
sure.
of like with the somewhat messy and like nature of the book was a little bit like but um, I think it was especially in volume one for me, and once I kind of got it and clicked, like two and three were much smoother to read there.
Yeah, there are definitely parts of this, like, I love every part of this book. I don't think I would change it even if there are things that I dislike, but if there are I feel like there are a few like scenes and plot cul-de-sacs that, like, if you kind of excised it from the book, the core storyline would probably still be relatively intact. As much as I really like the ditzy girl Kyoko, like, her entire inclusion in the story, like, I feel like if you cut basically everything involving her,
Yeah,
like, the story would not change that fundamentally. I think she has an interesting and I think she has an interesting side plot that makes me sad, and I have like feelings about it.
hmm,
But as far as like the cohesion of the story itself, you could probably cut her whole
yeah.
deal and like not lose
She
anything. Like, you
is,
could find another way for them to like lose their car or
yeah,
whatever.
but and she's one of the she's like, in a way she brings some comic relief to it, but it is like you said, also like sad, like just the stuff she's saying, and it's like, oh wow, so you're losing your virginity because you're a crush on this guy because he doesn't want to date someone who's a
Mm-hmm.
virgin, and it's like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time she's like, ha 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 ha, and it's like,
She's so happy-go-lucky about it, which makes it even sadder, honestly.
yeah, it really is, and then she doesn't really come back later on. It's just kind of like,
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I mean. Like, you could remove her entirely, and like the rest of the story would stay intact. Whereas like other things, like I really really like all of the side stuff with Reizu's girlfriend, and like the chapters like with her parents and stuff. And even though the even though she meets a very sad end, accidentally dying by having too much to drink and drowning in the
Which
bathtub.
To be fair, that's not real news. You can't actually do that, right? Like,
I actually had no idea.
I
So
don't think you can fall asleep and drown. I googled this, and it
yeah,
seems like your body would wake itself up. But
yeah.
it's
I
like
mean, I've
the
definitely
same like
heard that,
physiological response of like you can't like stab yourself like in the heart or
or
in
you
all this
can't like
I
like
choke
guess
yourself
you
to
can't.
death.
Yeah, you can't.
unless
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
like,
Well,
unless
well, you have
you
to
they
have.
can, but not.
No, I mean,
No, no,
physically
I
like
know.
use your hands. Like,
Yes,
but I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
unless
yeah.
they
No,
unless you
absolutely.
you fall asleep in the bath and then you wake up and you jolt and you hit your head and get knocked out, because then you can, you
That
would
might be a
you would
different.
you could
Yeah.
drown, but that's
but
not what
no, like
happens in this
but
book.
that's not what
Yeah,
happens.
she just kind of sinks.
I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought to Google it just because I'm
Sorry to CinemaSins.
no,
That's what the
I
show's
like I
about.
don't like
That's what the
on it.
show's about.
Honestly, I feel more comforted that that's not a real thing that can happen because even though I would not take a drunk bath like that because I feel like I would get too hot. Like I, uh,
People,
I
yeah,
feel better knowing that that's not like a
because
real
people
thing
like
that
a
could
lot of the
happen
time
to
in hot tubs
someone.
are like drinking and stuff. So
I
I don't
just
know.
I personally like when I have alcohol, like it makes my body hot. So I'm like I don't want to take a
Mhm.
hot shower.
Yeah,
So that's
To
just
be fair,
personal.
cold baths are kind of goaded.
I don't want to be covered in cold
I
water
would
unless
love
I'm
to
like out
have like a
swimming.
cold plunge like that I could get to in the morning,
Uh huh.
but yeah, that's only for rich people. It's
It really resets the clock on the drinking.
okay.
Like,
I'm drunk. I'm sober. Whoa. Let's
Well,
go.
it's like drinking, trying to drink a cup of coffee to sober up. You don't actually sober up. You're just more alert
Wow.
now.
I'm
yeah,
really
it's just
wow. 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 Wow.
I'm
Wow.
wired.
Ooh.
But anyway, yeah, I
Um,
really like the stuff with Reizu's girlfriend, and like I had kind of forgotten that she met such a tragic end, and I
that
got to that part of the chapter, and I'm like,
It's like a
no,
little bit
that
like
because she's so hopeful at the end. Like she's really gonna like get her life together and move on from this person who is like not. It seems like they've kind of not fully appreciated each other. Just because that's kind of how life is sometimes, and I was really like I'm always rooting for her, and then you get to the end or get to her end and she dies and it's really fucking sad.
yeah.
that is sort of where I started coming around
Yeah,
on the comic. Not when she died, to be clear. That's that
you
not
didn't
the
when you
Mm.
phrased that.
but but that whole arc that's I think it's like in volume 2 and it's sort of like
Hmm.
an interstitial
Yeah.
because you don't see the main characters for
Yeah.
I think maybe one or two
No, I think
chapters.
there's like one chapter that's like a 3-part chapter, and I think that's
Mhm.
her
Yeah.
little like
It's
mini arc
Yeah,
in
I
the middle
think
there.
yeah. And that I felt was the most interesting because that was the first time at that point that I felt like a character had like real interiority.
Yeah.
Because previously, prior to that, I felt like the characters were pretty one note, and
Hmm.
a lot of what was happening felt like uh, the writer trying to get a rise out of the audience, which I'm all for that. It was getting exhausting,
Sure.
and it was really a totally different mode. I mean, obviously, it's like more upbeat and hopeful until the very end, which I think is extremely fitting for the rest of the
Hmm.
Yep.
book. That nobody can be happy. Your life is miserable, and you will die alone and sad.
Unless
I don't know. They're
Which
smiling on that last
they're going to
page.
jail together. They're going to put them in the same
not in a
cell.
good way.
I know. I was
Yeah.
just making a goof.
Especially with I
um,
really like Kita's mom there and they're back and forth and it truly felt like
yeah,
I mean I feel like there's moments in with Rezu and Megan's sort of relationship and when they're talking where it feels like real and it feels like we're like there are emotional stakes, but that one to me felt like it was the most sort of down to earth real thing. And again we're again the emotional core. I was like, oh, this is really strong, and this is it was also the part where I was. This is why I like Volume 2 the most, because I think that's when it happens. That part, 'cause
yeah.
Hmm.
it really kind of grounds it and stuff.
I feel like it
It
really hits
also
this. The comic just really hits its stride in the
Yeah,
middle, and then like kind of has to wrap up at the end, and that's when things become complicated.
I also think that arc just executes better on some of the themes of the book in general because it's like it's not a character struggling with her sexuality, because like she's pretty clearly out as a lesbian, but struggling with how, you know, being out positions her socially. And I think that's kind of like part of the
that's like a big theme throughout the book in a way.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, and it's something that both of the main characters struggle with. I'd say that the blonde a little bit more than, but you know, like I feel like it kind of cuts through, and like this section of the book kind of just like cuts through and gets into it in a way that is more interesting and also feels like more universal, which isn't necessarily like you know, obviously it is in it is, the story is told in the Japanese context, but it's like it's not that like the social expectations aren't that different, right? Like there's a lot in there about like feeling like she's going to let her parents down because she's not going to have grandkids or whatever. And I thought that that's like, you know, more interesting and poignant than, you know, the first six chapters or so, which like, not that everything has to be poignant, you know, but it that sort of clicked better for me than
I get it.
Like, because the first volume is just like these characters running around threatening to kill each other, kill themselves, not kill each other, kill themselves every five or six pages, you know. So, and you know, it's like, sure, that's real. I you know, I do that all the. I'm always saying
in
that.
Discord. Let's go.
But like, yeah, but you know, it was nice to see the writer like move into like a different mode of storytelling, and then kind of like continue that into the third volume. Which again, like I have problems with the third volume. I think it's a bit more uneven, but a lot of that sort of carries through to the to when the story starts wrapping up.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, it kind of like reading it, this arc kind of made me be like, okay, no, this is what they're saying. Like this is sort of their thesis, or like their, you know, their the main sort of thing. So then like reading the rest of it was also like, okay, cool, this kind of, you know, fits and stuff. And I did like how it finally did end. I feel like the beginning of that third arc kind of like, where are we going? What's happening? And we're here, now we're there, now we're that. And then, you know, it ended up going there. I also think the hook for the book, I know we haven't really talked about that, is fun. Like just on its own, it's like, I got someone to kill my husband and she's in love with me. And it's like, oh,
there's a similar story that is also another Yuri that's also very popular that I have the first volume of, but I still haven't started it yet. And it's called Run Away With Me, Girl. And it kind of has, it's like Gunjo, but a lot like more like upbeat and a little like, I don't want to say fluffier, but it's just not as like intense, and it's got like a lighter tone, even though it is like, it has like a similar premise.
Interesting.
So maybe that'll be next year.
I'm down.
Did either of you have a favorite or least favorite character?
Yes and yes.
Oh.
I mean, already talked about her, but Kita's mom. I like Kita's mom.
Yeah,
I think it was
when
very
she's
sweet.
Like, my daughter is such a silly lesbian.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite pages.
Yeah, and I love like the switch of like after she comes out to her parents, and her parents go right back with, okay, like you're not getting any younger. You do need to meet a.
You need to find yourself a good
and
wife.
It's like, oh, those parents have one, you know, one gear, but it's nice. And then I really didn't like Rezu's brother. Yeah, he's just
he's
fucking,
kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
And he says like he has some like little diatribes that he goes on a couple of times where I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you?
He's just
saying?
like, I never beat kids or
like,
women, but I've
like
beat a woman twice today, and I'll do it again.
Yeah, like I'm not like confused necessarily. I'm just like, I can't relate to your perspective as a character at all.
It's very much like my I'm not homophobic shirt is raising a lot of questions about my homophobia.
That's
you know, like,
yeah.
I do really love that, like, he's like, oh yeah, you know, I don't care that you're a lesbian, and just says it over and over and over.
But like, what's it like to be a lesbian?
Oh,
how does it feel? And it's she's like, in what?
Like,
Okay,
what
yeah.
What does that even mean?
I like that because, like, presumably he has had sex with his wife, so he's not a stranger to having sex with women. So it's like it's probably like that, you know. Like,
He does have a lot of kids.
He has too many kids.
Too many. And one more
I
on the way.
Yeah. I did similarly hate him.
Yes.
He's a obviously, like, there's a lot to unpack with, like, how manipulative the other characters are to each other, and how, like, well, I don't think it's that morally gray, more like it's legally gray, I guess, the whole killing the husband thing. But the seducing somebody into killing your husband, that's not great. But I think by far the worst thing anyone does to another character in this book is when he lies to her about her girlfriend killing herself, as opposed to it just being an accident.
Yeah.
So the thinking behind that was he wanted her to turn herself in and be like morally absolved or something? Was that the... No.
He wanted her to feel as guilty as possible so that she would turn herself in. And then she can, like, because he also thinks that, like, then she can repent for her crimes. But I think the thinking was that, like, she clearly doesn't feel bad about killing the abusive husband. And
sorry,
she
no
shouldn't.
offense, I don't think she should.
I agree.
Yeah.
The legal system doesn't, but I think it's fine.
When you see all the bruises all over her body, it's just like
it is
horrific.
Pretty brutal. Like, I think it's like that scene when when she's in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, because they tell you about it a lot, and then you actually see it. It's actually a moment where, like, the shock value actually works.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it ever really goes away. Like, she's you see her bruises a lot for the rest of it.
Well, it's only happening over the course of a couple of days, so it would take a while for that
for sure.
that extent of bruising to...
But just for, like, reading it over a couple of days, for me, it didn't get any less, like, oh, yeah. Like, every time I saw it, I was like...
Yeah, like...
Oh.
It's like...
It's bad every time you see it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I think that in particular is like a really fucked up thing to say to somebody.
Yeah.
Even if you think your motives are pure. And I think that he is like, I mean,
he thinks he's doing the right thing,
and he thinks,
because he thinks that his sister has just been doing the wrong thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she kind of has.
He's got his, like, moral things where he keeps talking about how he doesn't beat women and children, and then he does, and he's like, well, but this was a very important, you understand why, and kind of thing, and then it's just... I think he genuinely feels like he's a progressive person, where he's like, oh yeah, like, no, how does it feel to be like what's up with that? Like,
see, what he says would actually shut down Victor Mancha. It's like a paradox. Like, I don't beat women and children, but I will beat the shit out of anyone who comes, who threatens my family. And now a woman is threatening my family. It's just like, you could just see him, like, speaking binary on the floor. Like he definitely has he definitely has a belief in the justice, the 99% conviction rate justice system of Japan that I think is certainly unwarranted.
His kid wants to be a cop too, just in case. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that the kid wanting to be a cop is kind of funny, because I do enjoy the concept, like, although you never really see them running from cops except for one scene towards the beginning when they run into a police officer.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the funny, like, the bit of, because the kids obviously, her nephews obviously don't know, and the kid constantly being like, "Oh, you're under arrest for XY crime." Like, it's cute. I enjoy that as a bit of comic relief. And in fact, I think the nieces and nephew, the one niece and I think it's one niece and the rest are nephews. Yeah. I think they are all kind of, like, good, like, comedic characters. I really enjoy the whole bit at the end which, again, a fucked up thing to do to, like, an 8-year-old or 10-year-old or whatever. But the thing where she convinces him that, like, she's an evil scientist and she put a bomb in him, and so he needs to go steal the car key. Totally, like, out of step with the tone of the rest of this book, but
Oh, but it's
still a
adorable.
very good
It
book.
is. It is.
It's one of those things where it's like it doesn't really, like I said, it doesn't jive with the tone of the book at all. But you have to forgive it because it is kind of fun, and it is nice to have some fun.
I think it's like necessary too, and I mean like the kind of
You need a little bit of
they
brevity.
kind of do the same thing with Kyoko, but it's like got the sad undertones with it, or not even undertones.
Yeah.
And then Kyoko leaves, and then later in the book you get the kids and stuff. So like there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The kids aren't like tripping off a roof or whatever.
No.
That happens.
No.
The kids are
Yeah,
fine.
and I think like if this book was just completely those two characters being like, I'm gonna kill myself. No, I'm gonna kill myself. No, I'm gonna kill you. And I got like I think it really needs those moments to balance it out.
Yeah.
I will say the cop moment. I think that's my favorite panel where they're running past the train tracks, and it's like just a gorgeous shot of like them kind of like jumping and the train coming and getting by, and I was like, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. John, did you say who your favorite character was?
I didn't. I don't know that I can't really think of a favorite character, to be honest. Like, I think in terms of the character whose like story I liked the best, it's the girlfriend. It's Kita.
Kita.
Okay, sorry, Kyoko's the
Kyoko's
the
ditzy girl,
the one from the beginning.
Yeah,
the
one who has a crush on her coworker.
I thought that the brother's wife is a much better. Well, is a much more likable character than he is. I like that how kind of pragmatic that she is. You kind of.
I love her I love her bad bitch moment where she's like, "I would kill anyone for you."
Yeah. I like that. I like that moment too because it's. I think it kind of it's another one of those moments that really gets at like the thematic stuff in the book of like he like and kind of the contrast between that relationship and whatever kind of fucked up relationship the other two the protagonists have, which is that like for him it's like he has like he likes his wife, he thinks she's attractive or whatever, but a lot of it sort of seems like a lot of the reason he's married to her is because like that's just what you do. Like it sort of feels like he's kind of just going through the motions to an extent. Whereas, like, it's an interesting contrast with the other two characters who, I don't know that it's a two-way street. Although by the end, I think it I don't know that they are in love with each other at the end. But the sort of killing for each other thing is maybe more of a two-way street than it is at the start of the book. So,
which this does kind of lead into my next question, which was, have you ever felt like there was someone in your life that you would kill for?
I would only kill for ideology.
Hell yeah.
And
the best ideology is friendship. So,
yeah, kill for friendship.
I wouldn't say that's.
I don't think I've ever. I mean, I've never in my life so far had a moment where I'm like, I feel like I will kill someone. I've never been in a situation where I've had to do that. I'll say that at least.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, could I see that being a thing? Sure. Maybe. I don't really want to kill anyone. I feel like that would be I feel like that'd be a bad thing, a bad vibe.
Bad vibe, yeah.
I on the other hand have every man's dream of becoming the Punisher. So I relish the thought of killing.
Your car with the Blue Lives Matter flag is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's good stuff.
What do you guys think of the ending? I like the ending, like as in I like the way that it wraps up, but I do find it a little exhausting, like as they keep as like Reizu specifically is like, okay, I'm gonna turn myself in. Okay, I'm not. Okay, I am. Okay, I'm not. Okay, I am. Okay, I'm not. It's like
women, am I right? They can never make up their minds.
I understand like flip-flopping on this, but like the amount of times it goes back and forth, I find a little it does test my patience a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the sort of inhuman devotion goes a little far, because that's what the flip-flopping comes down to, kind of, right? Is it's like, I'll do
Yeah,
what you want, and then that kind of changes. I enjoy the ending. I sort of assumed that that's where it was going pretty
yeah.
early on. That like they're never actually going to turn each other in. But I do agree with you that like the back and forth is a little exhausting.
The inhuman devotion is definitely like a Yuri trope. So
Hmm.
I can see why like if you're not as used to like the some of the genre conventions that is also probably pretty exhausting, but
I
I love
mean,
it, man. I can't help it.
I don't hate it as a literary device so much as I think it's a little bit out of place in a book that otherwise seems very concerned with being like based in reality.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I get
Like
that.
it's nice that they're, from one perspective, it's like it's nice that they are committed to each other in a way and going down together, and like, they're doing this thing, but like it's also like you're like, okay, you're going to jail, you're not going to be together. You guys will probably never see each other
Yeah.
again, which is,
They'll be in the same cell. That's how it works.
bunk bed
If you
style.
commit a crime
Well,
together,
it's
they
it's
put
in
you in
order.
the
It's in
same
order. It
cell
matters
in
when you
jail.
commit the crime, and then as long as no one does in between you two, because it's
Right,
it's just
exactly, yeah.
They
So
should know
you're at
how to
least
keep
gonna
the
get
line between you.
like adjacent cells.
exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, you can see each other, but you might not be able to like bunk bed every night. Maybe on Fridays. But anyway, would you guys have liked it more if the ending of the book was them like on a beach in a country far away from Japan, and they're like together and away from the law and like safe kind of thing, and just like
I mean, look, would I be hooting and hollering? Yes, but I find the very last page of like them standing in the police station going, "We're murderers." Like, I just love
it's
it a
funny.
lot.
It's funny.
It's
I
it's
I
I
would
think
have
it's a funny and good way to like just put that like that end cap on the series.
I would have loved it if there was like a subplot where they were trying to find the best country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with Japan, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
they're just
fair.
on their phone googling countries, non-extradition countries,
No, they
Japan.
don't have any phones. They'd have to
And,
go to a public
and
Just
library.
that's
completely
true. That after
just completely changed
and
the
they're
tone
just
of
like
the
going
book.
back and forth, like they're just going back and forth, like, well, Morocco's really nice. Like they've got some cool like tourist locations.
Yeah.
We could go to like Timor Leste. It's like an island. It's beautiful. They're just doing that the whole
Yeah.
time. I think it
That
would have been stupid, but I think it's a good bit. Someone should do like a
Oh
fanfic
yeah, for
where
sure.
it's like
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
100 words of them debating which
You could do it in like
non-extradition
chibi
country
art
to
style,
go
so people
to.
know it's not the real thing. Just
It'd
people
be
like,
really funny.
Yeah.
uh,
It is weird that this book sometimes it's not chibi art style, but sometimes it does do that really cutesy.
I do
Um,
like
like it's
it.
so weird. It's another one of those things where like I think I get that it's just like it's a not even like a genre convention, but a convention of the medium that like
It's just sort of like a
you
manga
draw.
shorthand sort of thing.
Yeah, like it's a way of conveying emotion by completely changing the art style. So I get like why she did it. It's just it is one of those things that feels so out of place. It'd be like
yeah.
you're sitting there reading a Batman comic, and all of a sudden he's chibiified. While he's talking to Damien
That'd be
or
sick.
whatever. It's a
That'd be
little,
wonderful. There were a couple of good
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great.
yeah. There's a couple of good quotes that I screenshotted. There's "I'm just a stupid lesbian murderer" earlier. That was a nice and just the way the panel is like, oh yeah, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's like the way it's broken
Yeah.
up. It's good stuff. And then wait, who is it lying in bed? I think it's Rezu lying in bed, and she's like, "I didn't decide to kill someone in exchange for sex with the one I love. I had sex with someone and I thought I'd be willing to kill for her. I don't want you to misunderstand." It's like a funny little thing. And the last one is actually a little poignant, if you will. "I'd rather be hurting because I'm with someone than be alone and forget the pain." And it was like, oh wow,
Is that when she's talking about her bruises and how like it
yeah.
yeah,
yeah, that I also screenshotted like basically that whole page because like Megane's like little speech about like how like the bruises don't hurt unless like they're being pressed upon, but like yeah, she would rather feel the pain be close to someone than like not feel the pain and be alone, because she is so profoundly alone for her entire life. And it's so funny, like I find it I find it kind of hilarious the way that like so much of like she spent so much of her life like kind of looking down on Reizu for like, she's like, you must have such a pitiable life because you're a lesbian. And it's like, no, actually Reizu like makes a really good life for herself and has like a really good successful job and like a hot girlfriend that she's been with for like a decade, and
A
like
family
but
who, even if you disappear
and
for
like
a long time, will kind of
yeah,
have your back, sort
will
of.
take you
Yeah.
back. And it's just I find it very funny that like that for so much of her life Megane like thought of herself as like, I don't want to say better, but like that like she found Reizu's life to be more pitiable, when it's like, girl, you are so pathetic and everything in your life is so pathetic and sad.
Sad.
I think that does get at another aspect of the book, though, which is the sort of like there is a kind of a class angle to it as well. I think that comes
Oh,
into play
oh,
there, which
100%.
I do really, I do really appreciate that. Like that's a part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like a
Because
huge
like
element of like their interpersonal struggle, because it affected
yeah,
so much of the circumstances of like their lives and how their lives intersected.
yeah, and it's a big reason why the uh Megane, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is the one I'm thinking of,
The
like
dark
has
hair one.
struggles with struggles with intimacy with her as well, because like she hates the idea that she's seen as like pathetic, and even though like she kind of, like, you're right that she is, but like she hates the idea of being seen that way,
Yeah.
and I like that that sort of keeps coming, is something that keeps coming back up, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but also we were talking. You guys were mentioning the screenshots you
Yeah.
took. I took
Mm-hmm.
exactly one screenshot, which I took in the Discord, in our Discord chat, and it's unfortunate. I did not know what was about to
Oh,
happen,
Kita? Yeah.
but it's
Oh
but
shit.
it's Kito, who has just drawn in like this cutesy
She's been
style,
chibi-fied.
yawning,
No.
saying she's like, "Oh my god, so tired. I drank too much," and it's just a shot of like empty beer cans on the next panel. And I was gonna post that with "She Just Like Me" for real,
And then
and
she
then like
fucking
10 pages later, I was like, "I'm
Oh,
not
she's
posting that." But I
dead.
kept the screenshot just in case, like, in a year and a half, I totally forget the context and I go back and just look at this image and I'm like, "Damn, I'm
If this
posting.
was
This is
formatted
funny
differently, it'd be a good
again."
profile picture, but it's not quite. It's not quite
Yeah.
It's not quite right. You
no.
can't get the beers and the empty
No.
beer cans
But
in the shot.
And you
again,
really need the empty beer cans to complete like
yeah.
I think there's another great one that I should have screenshotted, which is Rezu like in bed on her stomach reaching for a beer can that's like above
I
her
just love how
cot, which
the
I think is also
photorealism
great.
in like the beer cans, and especially like the cars too, where it's like,
Yeah.
and that's a Mustang, and it's like, whoa. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it just adds so much style to this book as it goes
Yeah.
on.
Yeah,
It's
I
also,
quite
I mean,
enjoy it.
interesting because when this thing started, I think it was like 2012, and the last issues in 2018, or the last chapter.
No,
Or
what
is
you're
that
looking, the
not?
dates that you're looking at are the like the scanlation upload on the website.
Oh,
The series itself actually started in like 2007, and then like was briefly like not being published for a couple like a it was from 2007 to 2009,
okay.
and then it came back in 2010 to 2012.
Okay, yeah. So started
So there was like a
2007,
little
final
under a
chapter in
year.
2012. I feel like there is a real,
Hmm.
the writing gets better as it goes on,
Yeah.
which is just like, it's I don't know, it's so cool.
Honestly, that I just find that to be the case with a lot of manga. Like it
Yeah,
really just takes a while for people to kind of like like find their voice for a series.
yeah. I'd say it's like most writers in general in comic stuff. I mean, exceptions aside, I mean, I think Morrison's stuff in like is always good, and Alan Moore's stuff's always good, but it's also like you look at Brian K. Vaughan in like the 2000s, and it's like, well, look at it now, and I mean, some of
Hmm.
that is like societal and cultural shifts and all that stuff, but I think with this one, it's just like the writing got better, which is like nice,
Hmm.
nice, nice, nice.
Not everyone can be Garth Ennis, just always bang.
Just constant
Oh,
bangers.
yeah.
I read a Garth Ennis comic that came out this week, and it was
What?
great.
Oh
So,
yeah.
fuck the
What's he up to?
haters.
That's good.
One thing that I didn't write in my notes, but I just wanted to mention because I think it's really funny, is that when the movie came out, like, there were complaints online from people who were, like, complaining about it being, like I like male gazy, and like the complaining about certain plot elements being like, oh, only like a man would write lesbians like this. But every single time they complained about a specific scene, it was always something that had like been directly like adapted from the comic itself, which is written by an openly gay woman. Like,
They're just mad that they cast hot women in the
Yeah,
film
yeah.
production. Which does feel a little bit like out of step with an
it does feel
adaptation.
like it's missing the point.
Is the movie?
Not that the main characters are unattractive, but they're definitely drawn in such a way that they're like,
I think it is important to the I think it is important to the work that the object of Reizu's undying affection is not the hottest woman you've ever seen.
Yeah, and then I was kind of scrolling through the movie on Netflix when you mentioned that, and like the two actresses are like hot as fuck. It's a little like it feels a little.
Is the movie bad because it's like it's a bad adaptation, or is it like a bad movie?
It's just like kind of just like a mediocre execution of a movie. Like,
because I'm looking at the trailer and it just looks like the acting is kind of like
it was just kind of like not. It was just kind of like just not a good movie, even if they like are going over plot beats of a thing that I enjoy.
Sure.
Like, it was just kind of like mediocre, especially after like I liked the manga so much. Like, seeing the movie, I was like, well, that was underwhelming. There's also an English language dub for the movie, which if you try to watch it on Netflix is what plays automatically. And I hate English dubs for live action movies for the most part. So I found that annoying.
This trailer,
and you can't even Google it anymore because you just get results for Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is the new Bad Boys.
Jesus,
that is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like specific things people complained about were like the fact that Reizu like seduces the husband and like has sex with him even though she is like 100% a lesbian. Or like
that happens in the comic.
That's what I mean. Like people were like, oh, like only a man would write a lesbian sleeping with a man, and it's like, no. And also like they don't directly adapt the conversation, but there's the conversation at the end of the comic where like Reizu's kind of like lamenting that she, not in like a trans way, but wishes that she had been born a man so that they could have like a more conventional relationship. And people complained about that, and I'm like, again, that's just in the comic. Thing. Like these are feelings that a real lesbian is expressing on the page. But okay, sure, only a man could have written this.
Yeah. Well, I also think there's something to like, because it's Megane who says that, right? Like,
I mean, they're kind of having like they're kind of both expressing this sentiment in different ways.
It makes sense that Megane would say that because like she's also not like a lesbian woman, right? In the comic, like I mean
she's not a lesbian for sure, but you could like you I feel like it's a little open to interpretation. Like,
for sure,
whether or not,
but I just mean like if she is
feelings.
if she is queer in some way, like the feelings are extremely repressed, right? Like that's how she's expressing how she feels in a way that like is congruent with her understanding of herself and the world, even if it's flawed, right? So that's more the point that I'm making.
Yeah, well, and there's like, but I like Reizu also like kind of echoes this sentiment when she's talking about like having sex and wishing that like she could like wrap both her arms around her partner, which it's like, girly, just get a strap on, it's fine. But like just that sort of like they both approach this sort of similar idea in different ways with different motivations. And I don't know, I think it's interesting. It's very,
Yeah.
like everything else, it's very messy, and I just think it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe
Um,
I'll watch this movie. Probably not.
I mean, it's kind of
Watching
garbage,
the
but it's not
trailer,
very long,
it
so
looks
I don't remember it being very
looks real
long.
bad.
So
If you watch it, watch the English dub, because the trailer's an English dub, and it's just like, oh,
yeah, watch the English dub; it'll be great.
oh.
But yeah, and I guess we kind of touched on it, but my last question was like, do you actually think Magane loves her?
Not really. I think it's they've gone through something very intense together, and so they have a lot of very strong feelings for one another that I don't think are love. If
It's
that makes
hate. It's
sense.
hate. It's hate that brings them together.
Yeah.
It does.
Just like me and all my friends.
Hell yeah.
It's just the absolute loathing.
Hell
of
yeah.
her.
Exactly.
I think there's love, or I don't know, the love that she can currently feel given everything she's been through, kind of thing, where like it's more, I think it is more not wanting to be alone, but there's also like, I don't know, they talk at each
She's
other so
almost
much.
she's almost so repressed that it's like, is she even capable of the vulnerability that love demands?
Yeah, she could be
And I don't know that the answer to that is
she
yes.
could be a Jedi, a good candidate. No attachments. No need. All good.
Yeah, these. I was always saying this about the characters in this story. They would all make great Jedi.
Yep. Yep.
I just assume you say that, like, I assume anytime you're reading a work, you're
Just
like,
thinking,
okay,
would
would
they
this
make
character make a good Jedi or not?
Yeah, that's how I evaluate everyone.
Hell yeah.
Are you Jedi or Sith coded?
Shoot.
You need a letterbox, but like just for analyzing whether or not characters would be Jedi or Sith.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think gimmick letterboxd accounts are a little embarrassing, but if there was one that I would ever do, that is not a bad idea.
Hell yeah.
I do respect the gimmick letterbox. It's not actually a gimmick account. The reviewer just like is the one who does the vegan warnings on movies. not because I care. Like I don't like, even though I am vegan, I don't care. I just like, I'm like, it's nice that someone's doing that for people who do. People get mad at her a lot for doing that, and I think it's like a normal, like it's a good service to have.
It's also like, who is this like really like,
yeah.
Like you don't have to look at this person's page. Like,
look, I've blocked plenty of users on Letterboxd because they wrote one review that annoyed me. Like,
I didn't even know that you could block people on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I blocked like almost all the big accounts because I hate seeing their shit.
Okay, yeah, see, exactly. Like, no excuse.
So
like,
easy,
if you don't like somebody's posts on Letterboxd, literally just block them and you don't have to see them. Like,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Hell yeah.
Do we have any other? Do you guys have any other things that you wanted to bring up before we start wrapping this bad boy up?
I'm gonna get mad about the ellipses in this comic for a second because they made reading the book a real chore. I hate to say it, but in my head, whenever I see that punctuation device, I take a pause, and the result was that it sounded like the characters were talking like this in my head as I was reading the book. And I think that's not great. I think Emily pointing out that it's a fan translation makes me a little more forgiving, but the fan translation should read a style guide about when to use different punctuation.
Ellipses do come up.
There's a lot of free ones that are public.
Manga, so I'm not that surprised. Like, I think it just comes across differently, maybe in Japanese, so that when people are interpreting that in a translation, like they keep that punctuation there, but it can come off a little stilted.
An interesting skill about translation is you want to adapt the work for the cultural for a different cultural context.
For word.
Yeah, not what Alex said. But yeah.
Yeah, but there's also like
it's not a. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, there are people with like varying opinions on like how faithful to like like the striking the balance between like quote unquote faithfulness to the original text versus like localization, and that's like a whole big
I'm gonna
thing.
say if you are so attached to one-to-one direct translations that it makes a comic harder to read, you are wrong and should strongly reconsider your
I
position.
yeah, I don't
I think you
disagree.
should just learn
I
Japanese if
can.
you're like really
I'm just.
one for one.
I'm used
Well,
to.
yeah.
I'm used to the overuse of ellipses in manga, so it doesn't. It didn't stand out as much to me, but like I can see where. I definitely see where you're coming from, and I do. I do think if it is impeding the like literal ability to read the work, then like obviously that is an
Yeah.
issue.
My second thing on the lettering, and this is also very much, this is definitely a translation thing. I get that you have taller text boxes because of the way that kanji are used in Japanese.
And Japanese is
Um,
written like vertically.
yes, it's read vertically, but again, like, and again, I think not. I feel like because it's a fan translation, this is more forgivable. But like, there are suspiciously empty thought bubbles that could have more in them, and also kind of impede the reading experience.
I, I can
I
see where you're
think
coming from.
I think I think it would have been even the stuff I didn't like for other reasons. I think would have gone down a lot smoother without that.
Sure.
Sure.
That I wanted to mention it.
Yeah. No, I
Hopefully,
totally get
if
it.
there's an official version or whatever, hopefully it's.
I know that there is like you can buy like a, or at least I don't know that it's like still in print necessarily, but like you can buy like an actual English
I
version.
will.
I just
I will
haven't
go to
come across
Powell's this weekend, and they have a whole Yuri/Yaoi section in the comics section.
Oh hell yeah!
And I
Yes.
will see if they have it, and I will look through it to see if
See
they
if
got
it's
rid of the
as bad.
ellipses.
Yay.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anything else?
No, that was I felt like I was just doing an airing of grievances.
Yes, of course.
I think I got in everything.
I have no
else.
further
Maybe there
grievances.
isn't
Oh,
an official
actually,
English
there is one
translation.
other thing there's one other thing that's not an airing of grievance that I actually liked that I meant to mention earlier, but I didn't. I really like the device that they use of a lot of times when the protagonists are actually like having heart, not necessarily heart to hearts, but more vulnerable or more like emotional conversations. A lot of the time, you see the speech bubble of the character who's talking overlaid over the face of the character who's not talking,
Yeah.
which I really like. That I think it's a really neat literary device of like conveying that the character who is speaking is either like embarrassed by the vulnerability that they're displaying, or like embarrassed or feels bad about whatever like fucked up thing that they just did 2 pages ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like this. Like they're almost trying to like hide their faces from the readers in that moment, and I thought that was
Yeah.
I thought that was really effective. And I also really like that you get to you're seeing what one character is saying, and then you're also seeing how the other character is responding to it. And it's a really
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a neat way to do that. I think it's not something that you see super often because it's definitely not standard in at least Western comics. Usually if somebody is talking, they are supposed to be in the panel,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's setting up like a
Shot
last page
reverse
reveal
shot or
whatever.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is kind of that feeling, and it's something you see in movies actually a fair bit.
Yeah,
in a similar context of subverting the traditional structure.
And when I read an interview with the author, she talked about like a lot of things that she's inspired by are not necessarily like other artists, but more like movies and stuff.
Yeah, which I think
I feel like you definitely get that in the work.
I think a lot of the best artists, in fact, are inspired by other mediums. Like there's a lot of interesting ideas that sort of cross pollinate. In the same way that I think like a lot of really interesting, a lot of like really interesting film compositions are people who are inspired by comics or other.
Yeah. And also, I looked. There is not. There is not an official English publication. It's only been published in Japanese. So.
Damn. Okay. Well. unfortunate.
Just
I feel like
not
if it got
popular
adapted,
enough, I think.
but it got a movie. That's the thing that's throwing me. Like, I feel like things that aren't popular don't get film
But
adaptations. You know,
it was a Japanese adaptation. So
Yeah, it was a Japanese
maybe it's
movie, but
that's
popular.
true. But
it was I think I don't like it was produced by Netflix, but I don't know
yeah.
I don't know
Well,
what like at what point in the production process Netflix became
But no, I mean,
involved.
I see what you mean. Like, if it's popular, Jean-Luc, in Japan, you would think that like they would translate it because like that's what happens with popular manga.
yeah, that's kind of how it happens,
Yeah.
right? Like stuff
Mhm.
that is financially successful and popular, you know, tend to be the worst to translate into other media, so or into other languages, not mediums. So if it's popular enough to get a movie, I'm just a little surprised it's not popular enough to warrant a translation. Although,
Yeah, I don't know.
obviously, like the American like comics and literature market and manga market is like our brains over here are like most people are intellectually about 11 years old. So I can understand why maybe you got to give them like My Hero Academia and other shit for literal children. You can't give them the real shit. So.
But yeah. So that's been Gunjo, which Gunjo if anyone was wondering, the title
I read the afterword.
yeah,
It was kind of interesting.
yeah, it means like ultramarine is like a color, and it doesn't like it has like thematic significance, but like it sort of started off as just like just sort of like a name, I guess.
I like what she says in the afterword about like the kanji and how it's like something
Yeah.
to do with the way that the different kanji that she uses to write it out, the way that it's written,
Mm-hmm.
and like the way that it like made one of them diminutive. Like I thought that was super interesting because like that's
Mm-hmm.
something like it's kind of hard to follow it as an English speaker because we don't do that. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But it was it's pretty interesting. If people do like seek this out, I would recommend reading the afterword. It's not really
Definitely, yeah.
relevant. Like when I saw there was an afterword, I was like very curious to read it because I thought it would be more about the book itself. It's not really; it's just about the title, but it's worth reading if you're interested in like the linguistic side of things. It's kind of cool.
Oh, and one last remark is in the interview that I read with Ching Nakamura, which was done by popular Yuri blog Okazu Yuri, run by Erica Friedman, who is also a Gunjo evangelist. In the interview, the topic of the characters not having names came up, and like Ching Nakamura gives like kind of like a thoughtful answer about it, but then she also says like my editor in chief said that characters need to characters need to have good names or a series isn't going to be popular, and I said fuck that. Like she doesn't say fuck that, but she's like I was like that's silly and ridiculous. I'm not going to give the characters' names are a secret only to me until the very last like the very end of the series, and I thought that was
all I'll say
funny,
is it doesn't have an English
enjoyed
translation, so
that.
she could have.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's been Gunjo. Do you guys hear that sound? Do you hear it?
Yeah,
One Joker, two Joker. No, never mind. Similar.
It's that's the sound of the Doomsday Clock signaling that it's time for our first ever Cry Space.
Doomsday Clock, Three Jokers, the Jeff Johns connection.
We're doing
kind of the same
we're doing
time.
a Jeff Johns month later, right? This year.
Like, yeah, for sure, man.
Sick.
I mean, we could read like JSA and stuff, like the actual readable.
No, we need
books.
to get the full the full wealth of Jeff Johns. I'll curate a month.
Cancel Crying in the Book Club and start the Jeff Johns cast, where we go. Every episode is an issue of that Jeff Johns has written, and we go from the beginning.
That'd be crazy. And every episode we can start it off by calling a phone number we think is Jeff Johns and see if he picks up. We do it live, and then it's like it's a good bit. It's a good bit. It always starts on the dial tone going.
There was actually a podcast I used to listen to that was a Bionicle lore podcast.
Okay.
And the bit was that they would call, like, one of the hosts would call the other
Bed
one, and they
Bath
would
and
just record
Bionicle.
it. Bed Bath and Bionicle, yeah, Emily
What
knows
the
what I'm
hell?
talking about. I think you recommended it to me, actually.
I did, because it was by
years
like
ago.
other podcasters that I
Yeah.
enjoyed.
And I thought that was, I always got a kick on it.
It was like one host calling the other host first thing in the morning and making them listen to
and
Bionicle lore.
telling them about Bionicle.
And that's the whole show?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, wow.
Every
it's like
episode
30-minute
was just,
episodes.
the first thing, the first conversation that the other host would be having that
That's
morning.
crazy.
Yeah.
See, I thought like as a 2-minute.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone wants that service from me, I can do
Because
it.
I think I think it's like a 2-minute bit on the
Yeah,
opening where like
concept.
one of us calls the other one and just like starts talking about something that we're like fixating on that day, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, cool." But a whole episode, that's wow. What was that sound? What does it mean?
The sound is this is our new segment that we're trying out for the first time in this episode, and it's where we talk about something that made us cry this week or in between episode recordings. So who wants to go first?
Give me. I'll take it.
You got a cry space?
Oh yeah.
What's up, Alex?
Oh, yeah. So it was
What made you cry?
it was a Thursday, and I was not feeling going to work, so I called in sick. I had sick days. Was feeling a little.
Hell yeah.
But then I was looking at what movies were playing, and I was like, "Oh, Furiosa's playing at noon." So then I went to the theater at noon, bought my ticket for Furiosa, and not a single other person walked into that theater. Which, granted, it's noon on a weekday, so not the craziest thing. But it was a great movie. It's like one of those movies where it's like, oh yeah, that's a film. That's wonderful. Look at all those sickos on screen. Look at them doing their thing.
It's a movie-ass movie.
It's a movie-ass movie. And it had Anya Taylor-Joy, I think that's her name. Is that correct, John Luke?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know much about her.
Yeah. I just know you're a film buff, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen her and stuff, but it never really.
No, it never really clicked. But she was very good in Furiosa. If it's still in theaters, I hope it is when this is airing. If not, that doesn't say good things about cinema in general. I'll say, but it's a sick movie. It's good stuff. I'll see it again.
It's fine. I will be seeing it again, and I admire George Miller swindling the studios out of $180 million.
That's how much.
Or whatever.
You know what? Like, it's $180 million makes sense for that movie with the effects and everything and all that. It's just funny that like the movie's not doing. It's not funny the movie's not doing well, but it's. I don't know. Part of it's like.
Well, I mean, with the way that like studios are like putting movies out on streaming like within a month of release, it's like people don't. Unless you're like a movie person, people don't feel like they need to go to the theaters to see things as much anymore.
Well, also, I just think it's funny because it's been completely memory hold because it's such a beloved movie that Mad Max Fury Road also did very badly at the box office, and everyone just is like, "Oh no, it didn't do as badly as
it had a bad opening,
but
maybe?
It was not a
or because it had
was
legs,
not
I
a
thought.
box off. It was not a box office success, but it became much more successful later. And I think it's great that George Miller got a real huge budget to do.
Yes.
Oh my god.
A freak movie.
Especially a prequel movie, like
it's so good. Emily, have you seen it yet?
I still haven't, but I really want to because I love Mad Max.
You're the
Fury
problem.
Road.
Yeah.
I know.
You haven't met the Octoboss.
Yo.
No, but I am seeing hundreds of beavers tomorrow.
Your life isn't going to be complete until you meet the Octoboss.
Oh man.
But I am seeing hundreds of beavers tomorrow.
I am jealous of that, and I'm like frustrated. I have to wait so long, and that none of the theaters here are showing it soon.
That is bananas. Like, how am I seeing it in?
Your film market also is pretty big, right?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah, but it's just like I would expect it to be in Portland, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the theaters here just have tons of like repertory screenings and stuff. So I'm not too surprised that since it's not like it's not like a set release date. It's just like kind of whenever theaters can fit it into their calendar. I think is the way that it's working. So I think that's just what it comes down to.
That's an okay, I guess, the way to do it. I mean, it sucks for seeing it soon, but as long as I get the spot. Yeah. I am excited. I haven't seen Mad Max since I've seen Furiosa, and I think I just want to. I might watch Furiosa again, then watch Mad Max right after that because.
Yeah, I have heard that they pair incredibly well together.
Yeah, I mean, just rewatching Fury Road afterward, because I didn't rewatch it before, but rewatching it after, it's like, oh yeah, wow, that's George Miller knows what he's doing. I mean,
That's a movie.
Turns
shocker
out.
to everybody.
I think they should do
Guy
he
can
should do
make a
one more
fucking
film. They should get
movie.
one more film and make it a prequel. You know, before Furiosa. Because I mean, I think Fury Road ends like on a nice like.
Well, I think the thing that he wants to do is like the sequel to Fury Road. Was
Oh, he does?
the next
Oh,
project.
wow.
Yeah,
That's
But
fine too.
we'll
I like
see.
Tom Hardy.
My cry space is also movie related, and I don't want to. I saw Challengers, and my life is forever changed. I've listened to literally nothing but the Challengers
Beautiful
soundtrack,
picture.
Nice.
and I keep forcing anyone who is in my car to listen to the Challengers soundtrack. And I have to explain to them every time that there is a phone alarm sound at the end of the first track on the album, and that's not my phone going off. But my cry space is specifically, I'm not gonna ruin it, but the very last shot of Challengers, like the very last thing that happens, I was kind of moved to tears a little bit.
Me too. This was also
had
my cry space.
very strong
a few
emotions
weeks
about
ago.
Challengers.
I tried to watch it. I booked tickets for Friday. I bought them on Thursday, and I booked it for Friday. And then I showed up on. Well, I got an email on Friday being like, "We're not showing that movie anymore. We're showing like a random Michael Caine movie." I was like, "What?"
Ew.
So they gave us
Fuck
a
that.
refund and tickets, but yeah.
That sucks. A movie benefits from being seen on a big screen. You should definitely try to go see it if you can. You can see
You
it.
can find somewhere, yeah.
It's still playing in a bunch of spots near me. That movie is also goated.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite Furiosa goated, but it's pretty close.
What about you, John? What made you cry?
What I paid for my comic books
No.
today. No, I didn't have anything else, so I was really I did the stupid like Bugs Bunny eyes when I bought 6 comic books and it cost $38.
Is DC holding the line at $2.99 still?
I didn't even buy. I bought 0 DC books this week. Actually,
Well, maybe they're holding the
Oh,
line.
I'm actually reading more Marvel books than DC books right now.
Yeah,
What's
he
become
just
of
loves
you?
X-Men '97. I think that's the genre.
No. The reason I'm reading more Marvel books is because you have to buy all the fucking X-Men books. But it's okay. We're done with the Krakoa thing. We had officially the last issue of the Krakoa Age today. Which, to be fair, part of why it cost me $40 to buy 6 comics is because that one was like $8 and it's like way oversized. So
Still, that's just insane.
yeah. But it was a good week of comics. So I when I saw that, I was like, that's going to be my cry space. Then I read the comics and I was like, probably got $48 worth of
Comics are cool, I guess. I don't know.
I like these. I like seeing I like the X-Men. I like seeing them hang out.
Yeah.
Alex, there was actually an X-Men 97 comic many years ago that is unrelated to the show, I think.
There is also one currently.
But is that one like actually tied into the
show?
show, or like?
I don't know if it's tied into the show. I haven't read it.
Okay,
but it is publishing.
But there was like original like many years ago. I know Chris Sims was writing on it because I listened to a podcast that he was on back when it was coming out. But but it is also like a continuation of the X-Men TV show in comic form. But
interesting.
I don't think it has any connection to
the new one,
the TV show.
Oh.
No. Or the new comic.
My other cry space.
So the new comic is a prelude to the current.
It's weird because the original show is the prelude to X-Men 97, the new one.
Yeah, but there's like a little bit of time in between the end of the TV show and the beginning of X-Men 97.
I'll take your word for it.
So I guess that makes sense.
You know, I miss reading comics podcasts where they would go through every issue that came out that week, and then I would like only read the DC ones, so then I would just hear about the Marvel stuff. And it was kind of cool to hear that.
Be kept up to date.
Yeah.
See, part of the reason that I have to read the X-Men books is because none of those are around anymore to tell me what's happening in the X-Men books. I can't just like drop the X-Men books.
You gotta know. We could just flip. We could flip gears next in 2 weeks. And just read every comic. But we split it up. We split it up. Like, Emily will read like all of the Top Cow, and John Luke will read all of the DC, and
Why do I have to Sorry, Top Cow. Because I'm the one that will tolerate it.
It's what Chad would have wanted. It's
Yeah, I gotta do it. Gotta do it for him.
the good news
You
is they don't
should,
put it
Emily.
on
You
a
should go to the comic book store and buy the Marvel Pride comic because it's about Mystique and Destiny.
Oh, I have seen
It's
images from this.
it's the whole thing is about their marriage.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
is it good?
I've seen some
you should,
panels
or
posted
their
online.
wedding. Yeah, yeah.
I've seen some
So it
panels
was 2
posted
weeks in a
online.
row of paying like $8 for X-Men comics, but both times it was worth it.
Nice,
you
because
know,
I feel like a lot of
I
those
think
like
the X-Men are worth $8.
at least 16, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's actually less than I normally pay for X Men books in a week because usually there's like 3 X Men books every week or whatever. So it's like, but I'm excited. Gail Simone is writing an X Men book.
wow.
There's some good creative teams coming up, so I'm looking forward to.
Hell yeah!
Now that we're out of the Krakoan age.
Hell yeah! Fuck the
Well,
Krakoan age.
I think that brings our show to a close. So if you would like to follow us on the internet, you can do that on Twitter at Crying Book Club. Please rate and review us 5 stars on your podcasting platform of choice if it is one that allows you to rate and review podcasts. John Luke Botbill can be found on Twitter at Mountain Dew Liker or on Letterboxd at JL Botbill. Alex can be found on Twitter at Alex Hanziak, and I can be found on Twitter at MPandanada, on Letterboxd and Twitch as Pandabor, or on the podcasts Imagine Me and You to Know the Fresh Podcast Market, and that looks terrible. And I don't remember what the next episode of this podcast is supposed to be, if we have even decided. So shrug emoji.
Mark Millar's The Ultimates, issues 1 to 12.
Hell yeah!
I mean, you could be
That's
right.
that's fake. That's fake news.
Oh,
I was gonna say you could. I wouldn't know the difference. But yeah,
There will be an episode in 2 weeks.
There'll be another episode. We will talk about a comic book, I'm sure. So see you then. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. We should do Laura Dern keeps breaking up with me.
We already did that one.
Shit. Pride of Baghdad.
Also, did you say Laura Dern?
Shit. Shit.